The 30th Annual Alaska Native Art Auction, celebrating Indigenous artists and voices, takes place Saturday, March 21st. Corporate sponsorship opportunities are available. Information at kmba.org.
Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. The Muslim holy month of Ramadan is coming to a close. It's a time of fasting, prayer, and self-reflection. Among those observing the holiday are a handful of Native Americans who find comfort and purpose in the Islamic faith. We'll hear from them about what this holy time means and get their perspective on rising Islamophobia with increased tensions in the Middle East. That and a perspective on the situation in Cuba, coming up after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. U.S. Senator and citizen of the Cherokee Nation Mark Wayne Mullen's nomination to become the next Homeland Security Secretary hit a rough patch Wednesday, as correspondent Matt Laszlo reports from Washington.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem lost the faith of President Donald Trump. But the pick to replace her, Oklahoma Senator Mullen, lost the faith of Senate Homeland Security Committee Chair Rand Paul for mocking him for being attacked by his neighbor 9 years ago.
You told the media that I was a freaking snake and that you completely understood why I had been assaulted. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this violent assault that caused me so much pain and my family so much pain. I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force.
Mullen's a former MMA fighter and wasn't backing down.
I have to address the remarks the chairman made, calling me a liar. Sir, I think everybody in this room knows that I'm very blunt and direct to the point, and if I have something to say, I'll say it directly to your face.
While the heated exchange made national headlines, most Republican U.S. senators shrugged it off.
No, they don't like each other. There's no ambiguity on that.
I'm not going to get involved in that.
Reminding what my mom would say is if you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say it. And those rules we learn in kindergarten still apply up here as well.
Those Republican U.S. senators are Roger Marshall of Kansas, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, and Ted Cruz of Texas. Even Mullen's home state colleague, Oklahoma Republican Congressman Frank Lucas, was taken aback by the barbs.
I never impugn the opinions of my colleagues, so maybe there was a little bit of truth in what they both had to say.
For National Native News, I'm Matt Laszlo in Washington.
California Native American Assembly member James Ramos is urging for the establishment of California Native American Day as an official paid state holiday. A bill introduced by Ramos would designate the fourth Friday of September as a paid holiday for state employees. Ramos, along with tribal leaders, legislators, and labor leaders, held a press conference Wednesday in Sacramento. Ramos says the state should honor California's first people with the paid holiday.
It's true and just that this has to happen. It's time that the voices continue to move forward and to make sure that we're calling out for respect and honor for California's first people and tribal elders.
Ramos says they have many worthy holidays, but the bill creates justice for past atrocities toward California Indian people who've lived through colonization, including the Mission and Gold Rush eras. Several tribes are working to bring back bison to their lands. As the Mountain West News Bureau's Rachel Cohen reports, one source helping them is in Denver, where the local government manages a herd.
Snow was falling fast and hard at a mountain park west of the city earlier this month when 34 bison were gifted to 4 tribes or nonprofits. Denver has managed 2 small herds since the early 1900s and started giving some animals to tribes 6 years ago. Louis Talbot is with the Talbot Memorial Council, which has members from various tribes. This year, the organization is taking 1 bison back to a property it manages near Denver.
The bison represent so much. They represent the water and the fire and the thunder and the clouds and the snow. They represent all that but at the same time, they represent us as indigenous people.
Tribal leaders said the animals would add genetic diversity to their growing herds and help feed tribal members with a historic food source. The Navajo Nation got 11 bison in the transfer, and Northern Cheyenne in Montana received 10. I'm Rachel Cohen.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tribal development partners believe strong infrastructure strengthens tribal sovereignty. Through the 105L lease program, TDP helps align federal funding systems with long-term tribal priorities. More at tribaldevpartners.com. Proud to support this show.
Hear that? Tribal college faculty do so much, one can't say it all here. Nothing but respect. Visit mostthoroughdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe citizen Megan Kalk says preserving her Ojibwe culture is an important part of her Islamic faith. She is one of a small number of Native Americans who are Muslim. Today marks the last day of Ramadan, the holiest month on the Islamic calendar. And on our show, we'll hear from Native Muslims about what Ramadan means to them and get their reflections on a surge in anti-Muslim rhetoric from elected leaders and the public. And later in the hour, we'll hear from a Taino scholar from Cuba about surging tensions between that country and the U.S. as President Donald Trump threatens to oust Cuba's president and, in his words, take the country. Citizens are enduring a severe energy crisis because of a U.S. block on oil imports, leaving many of its citizens without power. You can join us today. Share your comments and questions. Just call 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. And as always, we have our social media channels available to you as well. Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Joining us now on Zoom from the Mille Lacs Reservation in Minnesota is Megan Kalk. Megan, hello and welcome to the show today. And please feel free to further introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Megan. I'm from the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. I had converted to Islam about my late teens. I left the reservation to go to college, and for the last 12 years, I've mostly lived and worked among the Somali American Muslim population in Minnesota.
Late teens. So you've been a Muslim for over a decade. Tell me more. What inspired you to make this change in your faith?
I would say the simplicity of it, really. A lot of religions have a lot of complex kind of things, and I think this one just was more simple.
Now, Ramadan has been a little bit different for you this year. Tell me more. What has it been like?
So Ramadan for me has been difficult for so many years, but due to blood sugar and diabetes type of things. But this year, the past 2 years, I moved back home to the reservation. So it's a little more isolated than usual, and kind of keeping some of those traditions with my kids have been a little bit more difficult, but more opportunities to blend some cultural things and with Ramadan.
Now, I know feasting is a big part of Ramadan. So is that where you have some issues with the blood sugar and the feasting? How does that work for you?
Mostly the fasting part of the day. So, I can't go without food for 10 hours.
Sure. Well, tell us more. I mean, what is the significance of this month for Muslims? And give us a little bit more background on Ramadan as well.
Yeah, so Ramadan, it's the holiest month in Islam. It's mainly a time where people are fasting to get closer to God. When you're fasting all day, you have this sense of like desperation. And the only way, I mean, there's a few different healthy ways you can channel fasting if you're not like spiritual, but within Ramadan, you kind of channel that desperate kind of feeling into worship of God. And then in the evening, it's, feasting with your family, and a lot of times a big part of it is giving charity. And fasting isn't always, just fasting from food and water. It's also fasting from negative emotions. So in Ramadan, you're also not supposed to get angry. And if you get angry, some people, it might invalidate your whole day of fasting from food and water.
And how long does Ramadan last?
About 30 days. It really depends on it's on a lunar calendar. So that doesn't quite line up with the kind of Gregorian calendar that we all kind of go by. So it can be anywhere from 28 to 31 days.
Megan, I hear you use the word God. You refer to a higher power as God. Is that how most Muslim people refer to the higher power, by the word God, or do they prefer Allah?
So
what do you hear
Allah in Arabic just means al is the, and la is God. So it just means the God. You'll even see Christians in the Arabic speaking world use the word Allah. So it's kind of like in America, you might see some New Age people, whatever religion they might be, will use the word God. Some agnostic people will use the word God. Native American people will use the word God, and all different branches of Christianity or Judaism will use the word God. So, in an Islamic context, everyone worships Allah.
Okay. Yeah, this is really fascinating. Megan, your father grew up Catholic and was also raised with Ojibwe beliefs, and your mother, as I understand it, was largely Southern Baptist. So tell me a little bit more about how your transition to the Islamic faith took place, and how did your family react?
The reaction was complicated, but I think a lot of times, no matter what background you're from, if you're American, no matter what that is, you have this negative kind of view in your mind from mostly media, or especially in Native American communities. We have some of the highest rates of military service. So you kind of get this kind of us against them mentality, even amongst Native American communities. But I was very happy to be able to kind of expose my family to Muslim cultures, and found a lot of cultural similarities. I maybe think other Native American Muslims would probably say the same thing, and that is any Muslim cultures, whether that's Somali or Arab or Indian or wherever you are, there's a lot of overlap with Native American culture in the way that people interact with each other, the actual same type of humor, the sense of hospitality and community, that a lot of times when you leave the reservation, it felt like the Muslim community, no matter where they were from in the world, felt like home away from home.
The sense of humor, that I find really intriguing. Give me an example of how an Islamic sense of humor might kind of overlap with what we think of as Native American humor. Yeah,
so I would say it would be more like of a Muslim culture sense of humor. So I'm mostly familiar with the Somali American population, and a little bit of the Indian and Pakistani Muslim populations. So in Ojibwe culture, you might get a nickname based on something that you're insecure about, and that teasing is really just a way of just not taking things too seriously and joking around with each other, kind of lovingly, but also teasing. And so I noticed, I've seen funny nicknames up here around the reservation, and then I would go down with the Somali community in the Twin Cities area, and they would say this guy's name, and I would think that was just his name. And when I found out the translation of it, it was kind of like mocking something, but in that same humorous, playful way. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, the sense of humor, just a more down to earth, sometimes crude. You may not expect it, but you see that too in those a lot of Muslim communities. They're very playful, just as they are on the reservations.
Uh-huh. Now you mentioned your connection to the Muslim Somali community, and I know you had a number of friends who were Muslim Salami when you lived in St. Cloud. Talk a little bit more about those relationships, and how did they accept you as being a Native American person who was also a Muslim?
Yes, I think amongst Muslim Americans, or when they meet somebody who's a convert from somewhere else, it's in Islam you accept everybody no matter where they come from. But I also felt a lot of immigrants maybe don't have the opportunity to meet Indigenous Americans, so there was a little bit of like, oh wow, where are you from? That's amazing, you're one of the native people. So it's you kind of get a little bit of that same romanticization that you get from white Americans, but not in a disrespectful way or anything like that. And they really accept you right into their communities. I mean, no matter what you convert to Islam from, whether you're Scandinavian American or Native American, that community in particular is just amazing at accepting you as one of their own, taking care of you, getting you jobs, finding you opportunities, inviting you into their home, trusting you to babysit their kids. So many people I've worked alongside, laughed and cried alongside, that those bonds will never be broken, no matter where I live in the world.
Megan Kalk is kicking off our conversation here today on Native America Calling. She is a citizen of the Mille band of Ojibwe, and she is Muslim. And she's talking about her faith and what it means to her, and a little bit about how she came to accept the Muslim faith in her life, the Islamic faith in her life. And this is an interesting conversation. I hope you're enjoying it. And if you have a question or you have a comment to share, please give us a call. The number is 1-800-996-2848. And I'd like to hear some listeners today. Just let us know your thoughts, or what intrigues you about a Native American person who also is Muslim. I read an article. As Native American people, we represent 1% of the population in the United States, and Muslim Native Americans represent about 1% of our total Native American population. So we're talking about 1% of the 1%. It's not every day you're going to meet a Muslim Native American, but we have them here on our show today, and you can talk to them. 1-800-99-NATIVE. Stay with us, folks. We will be right back. We'll continue this conversation. Team Alaska was among big winners at the annual Arctic Winter Games, often called the Olympics of the North. The event combines traditional Indigenous competitions with more mainstream winter sports like hockey and skiing. We'll get a perspective on what the Games offered on the next Native America Calling.
Support from Davis Keelan Law Firm, a New Mexico firm standing with Native families suffering catastrophic loss. When tragedy strikes Indian country, we fight to restore stability, dignity, and justice. Bringing a voice to Native families and communities for 20 years. More information, daviskeelan.com.
Hear that? Tribal college faculty do so much. One can't say it all here. Nothing but respect. Visit mostthoroughdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
We're glad you're with us today on Native America Calling. We're speaking with Native Muslims about Ramadan and confronting a surge in anti-Muslim rhetoric. Later in the hour, we'll hear about tensions between the U.S. and Cuba. As always, listeners can join our show by sharing comments and questions. Just call 1-800-996-2848. That number again, 1-800-996-2848. Let's hear now from Raymond Matt. He is a citizen of the Crow Creek Sioux tribe and a Salish Kootenai descendant. He lives in Montana and converted to Islam 8 years ago. He talked to NAC producer Sol Traverso about how Ramadan provides a time for personal reflection about important thoughts, like his ties to his family.
I faced a little bit of feedback from some of my family members. One of my uncles, I remember when I first told him I embraced Islam, and my uncle, God bless him, he's a great person, but he's a very hardcore Christian. And so his first response was, I won't say all the explicits, but and then he was not happy. And now him and I are finally on talking terms. That was one of my first tastes of having this inter-family type of judgment.
Can you talk about what Ramadan means to you and what celebrating the holiday is like for you?
For me, this particular Ramadan, it's got a lot of sentimental value to it because, you see, last year during Ramadan, my mother had passed away, and that was one of the hardest things. When I look at Ramadan, it's a time for healing for a lot of Muslims. There was one imam that said something that always stuck with me. He said, if I'm not doing something that make me grow spiritually during the month of Ramadan, then I'm just starving myself for no reason. If there's not some sort of spiritual growth involved, then that's all I'm doing is just abstaining from food and water. And this particular Ramadan, I've decided to try and learn how to play Amazing Grace on the Native American flute. And the reason being is because my mom, she kept her Catholic faith right up until the end. It was something that I couldn't really change, and she kept it that way. And Amazing Grace was one of her favorite songs, and so that's what I've been doing the past couple of weeks, is just trying to learn how to play that song for my mom. So for me, Ramadan has a sentimental value. I mean, not only was it the blessed month where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was revealed the Holy Quran, but it's also a month that I feel, just from my own interpretation and my own understanding, I feel Ramadan's an individual journey for every single Muslim. This year, that was the one thing that was on my mind, was how I would handle having my mom being gone for about a year. And
can you expand on that a little bit, like how your faith complements your native culture?
In the Salish language, there's a prayer called that goes Amod kin keslemti huliat wasket lemlench will kahwitsot kehen wiltin yet wasket utho kast as utstawal kasolpumshi kahwitsot ka enyopialaten utho kast as lemlench. And that prayer is saying, Creator, we are thankful. We are thankful for today. And it's a prayer of gratitude. Thank you for all these different things that are given to me today. And the word creator is one that I linked mostly with my native heritage, because when you go through the Quran, the word al-Khaliq is the creator, because the Quran gives 99 names to Allah, and the creator being one of them. And so that was one of my first times I had heard the creator being used in more than one way. And so it made me think, if I think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not as being an old bearded old man in the sky, like what I was taught almost in church, I think of him as more of a presence, a creator, if you would. And so when I think of him having 99 different names in the Holy Quran, then the possibilities of his infiltration into my life as a native are not limited anymore. That's how I integrated in with Islam, is when I look at what I can take from both of them and then kind of merge them into who I am.
That was part of an interview with Crow Creek Sioux tribal citizen Raymond Matt. An extended version of this interview can be found on our website, www.nativeamericacalling.com. Let's go to the phones. We have Glenn, who is listening to KUNM radio in Jemez Springs, New Mexico. Hi, Glenn. You're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much for this program. 9/11, a Pakistan instructor showed up at our Lutheran church in Albuquerque and demanded to be able to go up and speak to the congregation. And when he started speaking, he said, "Forgive me for what happened at 9/11." People just were so amazed that he would be willing to do that. And the following Sunday, an imam, Abdur Rauf Marcos Marchetti, showed up to teach us about Islam for a month, and he has become my brother since then. He comes to our community church here in Jemez Springs every December for potluck and sharing. And this last December, my good friend Ben from Jemez Pueblo came, and we shared so significantly. A woman was present who has roots in Isleta, Laguna. And after it was over, Abdur Rauf said, "Glenn, this was the most significant sharing I've experienced coming up here for a dozen or more years." And so I guess I just would be so honored to have any Indigenous folk who want to be with a loving imam who comes from parents who fled Cuba. He's a son of Cuban exiles, and Abdur worked as an engineer at Santana Pueblo, and now his wife is in charge of the healthcare system. So there's the invite, and thanks again for this program.
Glenn, thank you for calling in. Keep them coming. Love when we have callers, especially folks like Glenn who don't call in every day from Jemez Springs, New Mexico. I'm going to bring another guest into the conversation now who joins us from Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada, Jamila Southwind. She is a Muslim, a mother, and a former translator, and she is from the Keeseekoose First Nation. Jamila, hello. Welcome to our show, and please feel free to further introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Peace be upon everybody. And thank you for welcoming me.
Absolutely. This is interesting. Now, you lived for more than a decade in the Middle East. Tell me more about that experience of being Muslim there as opposed to in Winnipeg.
I spent my 20s and 30s in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for 10 years, and worked as a translator and in passport section for the government. And also I was able to get 5 degrees, and I through my work I traveled to 13 countries. So the last place that I was working in was Karachi, Pakistan. It was truly an amazing experience, and to see all of these countries and how the cultures, and there are times I felt really lonely because I was the only native abroad. As far to my recollection, that I was the only native abroad. I didn't see anybody of our own race. Mm-hmm. But it was so beautiful. There's truly no words to describe what the Creator let my eyes see. It's so beautiful. All these countries that I've seen in Europe and Middle East and Africa, it was so beautiful.
Jamila, what drew you to Islam initially, and what was it about the faith that has made you so devout?
Okay, well, I was raised from my cuckoo. Cuckoo in my language means grandmother in my native language, which is called Ojibwe. And she was a residential school survivor. And I seen a lot of family members from my reserve and the elders, and I seen the pain that they would go through in their life, and what happened to them. I had all these questions that I didn't have answers, and I'd go out seeking answers. I was very curious at the age of 5. I started asking questions and still no answers. So then I started looking into the faith. I wanted to understand what kind of faith is this that's forcing my people to do this, to go into residential schools and all of the abuse they endured. Like, I wanted to understand that. Although I'm not saying that all like the Christianity faith is bad, I'd never say that, because I'm not the judge. Only the Creator is the judge of us all. I personally, speaking for myself, I wanted to understand. So therefore, I started researching all different kinds of belief systems. And personally, I really just wanted to pray and worship the one Creator, the one God, who has no partner, no wife, no son, no daughter, nothing. That's what I was looking for in my life. And then I came across Islam. I did and then I came across Arabic. So then I started befriending friends. There was a lot of Iraqi Kurdish refugees from Kurdistan that came to my city. So I started frequenting the places they would frequent, like public parks and malls, and then I would befriend them, and then I would ask questions. That's what intrigued me. So that was how I started out in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Jamila, what I'm hearing from you then, perhaps, is that the Islamic faith might not have the same colonial mindset as some of the Christian faiths might have had, especially with regard to interactions with Native American people. Ramadan, what's it been like for you this year?
Well, I've been a revert now 24 years, and this year will be November. And this year November will be 25 years that I've been a Muslim, and it's I don't like to use the word lonely, because I have my children and I have the community. Like, it's I have a very big community, and they're very welcoming. And yes, I'm the only Muslim in my family, and my children are the only Muslim in my family. But it's good. It's really beautiful. It's like, a lot of people have the misconception that we don't eat like from sunrise to sunset. But we only miss one meal. We miss lunch. Like, there are. It's like a body cleansing. It cleanses your body, and like when you're praying, you're asking Allah for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And you wish to you wish to become a better person for yourself, because the creator put all of us here for a reason. So the reason that I wish to do better for myself, because I'm also a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher to them. So whatever I do, they follow. So I need to teach my children good values and self-respect, self-restraint. Like, they're both at an age where they can fast too, but like that's something I would never push on them.
Okay, all right. Let's go to the phones now. We have another caller on the line. This is Jen, who is listening to the show in East Texas. Hi, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sean. I'm so appreciative and so grateful for all these people who are calling in, who've opened up their minds, as I did as a Native person living in Austin for 20 years. I got to know my Islamic friends and my Buddhist friends, and I would join in with different activities. like learning to pray while you walk with the Buddhist people. And also we would chant all the night through when 9/11 happened. And then my Islamic friends, it was just very, we were all very open with each other. And because I had a radio program, we would have our own individual shows and play the music and understand each other. And I grew up Christian, but as a Native person, I've begun to think, as many of these people do, of my Creator as a spirit, and its spirit lives within me and directs me directly. And although I do enjoy visiting my Methodist people, that I enjoy praising God in a Christian way, and they accept me as I am. And I have a lot of friends in the Mission Church in Dallas that are intertribal, and I have a lot of friends who are intertribal in Austin, and we all had this one bond. And I would attend the Black church in my community, and they welcomed us. It was just a wonderful 20-year experience, and I want to encourage people to keep what they feel, and I hope their relatives come to accept them. I'm glad that some of them did, and I thank you, Sean. It's such a great program today, and you're doing it so well. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jen. And, our producers put a lot of hard work into this show, and I'm enjoying it, too. I'm learning a lot and definitely becoming more informed. We do have to take another short break, though. We have to do our underwriting, so I'm going to have to close out here just for a couple of minutes, but we'll be right back and we'll continue our conversation. We've got a lot more to talk about as well. We're going to talk about Cuba, too. And the phone number, though, is open for folks who would also like to join the call. It's 1-800-996-2848. And again, talking with Native American Muslims. We've already gotten a couple of calls, folks who have insights and perspectives to share, and maybe you have one too that you've been thinking about while listening to the show, and you can voice that thought, that comment, or ask a question. Just pick up your phone and call 1-800-996-2848.
Support by the Gathering of Nations Powwow. The last dance is this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. Reservations open now for RV and camper camping on the powwow grounds at Expo, New Mexico. Tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates.
Need an actionable plan to achieve your goals? Kaufman & Associates strengthens Native organizations through culturally grounded strategic planning. More at kaufmaninc.com. KAUFFMANINC.com.
We're glad you're with us today here on Native America Calling. Let's continue our conversation with Native Muslims about Ramadan and confronting a surge in anti-Muslim rhetoric. And I want to go back to our first guest, Megan Kalk. And Megan, we've heard some really, really disparaging comments recently. National elected leaders who've been criticized for posting anti-Muslim rhetoric. For example, a U.S. representative from Tennessee said on X that Muslims don't belong in American society. And I just want to get your reaction in how remarks like that make you feel and what your response is.
Yeah, so with the recent kind of Islamophobia, it's something we've all lived with since 9/11. But for the people that are making those comments, some of our elected leaders, what happens when we confront them with this seeming conundrum dichotomy in their minds of a Native American Muslim? What if Christianity had spread to what if Islam had spread to Native American tribes in the way that Christianity has, maybe not in the same, residential school, that kind of context, but where we see lots of Native Americans and Christians. If we've seen lots of Native American Muslims, would that political rhetoric change? for what I would just like to say about Muslims in America is that I really truly believe they have more of the American spirit and American dream in them that some of us have lost today. I've never seen more entrepreneurial people that love this country, that want to make it in this country, that want to make something of themselves. And just beyond the headlines, sitting down with people different from you has been one thing that has shown me that we're more alike than you would ever really think, especially Muslims and Muslim Americans from wherever they are in the world. And I think a lot of people, white European with Christian background, could find a lot of common ground with the Muslim American community. I think they would really, really be shocked if they were to look behind all of these international headlines and, this how Islam gets interpreted politically in all these countries in the aftermath of whatever Western imperial government has damaged their country, and they all have their own histories. But for the day-to-day life of every Muslim American, they just have this drive in them, this spirit to do something and make something of themselves. Especially in Minnesota, we've been seeing negative headlines about the Somali community, and I've never seen a more incorrect portrayal of a community than that one. These people, they come from some of the, worst places in the world compared to, human rights and things like that. And they've come here and they've completely learned the language, gotten college degrees, starting businesses. These people are really honest people, that their faith is just as important to them as, Lutheran Minnesotan in the rural area. Their values are the same.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Megan. And you pose a really interesting question that has me thinking, what if Islam had spread in the United States and specifically to Native nations in the way that Christianity has? That's something really fascinating to think about. We're going to pivot here and get an Indigenous perspective, an Indigenous Cuban perspective on current threats facing the country of Cuba. And the phone lines remain open for folks who would like to join us, 1-800-996-2848. Let me now introduce another guest who joins us from Akwesasne, New York, Jose Barrero. He is a journalist, a former editor for Akwesasne Notes, and a scholar emeritus at the Smithsonian Institution. He is Taino. Jose, welcome back to Native America Calling. It's great to have you on the show again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, as I mentioned, you are from Cuba. Tell me, what's been your reaction to President Trump saying that he's going to take the country?
Oh, goodness. It's such a brazen attitude toward a whole other country in its own issues, trying to make its way in the world. 11 million people, and a long history with the United States. It's concerning in many ways. It's the crisis is with Cuba, as we see with Iran. It's easy to start and much more difficult to get somewhere with some sense of finality, and very tough, very tough. The embargo of oil is really hurting people. People are dying because of it. Hospitals shutting down, transportation to a bare minimum, if any. Really, a lot of places people are just in place. The country had its issues, had its problems, but this is just a kind of a slow genocide happening to a people, strong-arming people with starvation possibilities, and actually, real hunger going on today. So it's a tough time.
You describe it as a slow genocide. Those are strong words. Now, Jose, this isn't the first time in the last year or so that we've heard President Trump talk about going after or taking over other countries. Of course, Now his sights appear to be set on Cuba. Were you surprised at all that this was coming or that this happened, or did you kind of figure, well, eventually he's probably going to get around to Cuba too?
They all do. Every U.S. president has some kind of idea about what to do about Cuba, which just as a country that had its revolution, declared a more independent stance in the Americas. Doing that, it incurred the wrath of U.S. administrations, and so there have been many punishments since then, and a few crises with the Soviet Union very prominently in 1962. So it's been there. It's many things have been tried to just help the system open up more in Cuba as well, and become more resourceful economically, which it can do. But the best shot of it was under President Obama, who opened up Cuban business potentials. And the change that any actual thinking American president may want to make in Cuba comes through opening up markets, opening up business, and helping people in Cuba, also the entrepreneurs in Cuba and companies do better business around the world. And you see the people would go into that, and the system would open up a lot more in that capacity, as it was until Trump in his first term shut that completely down, and the country went into turmoil, that and the COVID epidemic.
However, the possibility of opening the Cuban economy to American-owned businesses, that is something that Trump has talked about. It's something that he's interested in. And it's no secret. I mean, Cuba did once have a thriving tourism industry. What are your thoughts about that? And I'm even thinking of like Native American tribes who are heavily invested in tourism and the possibility at some point that they could have access to Cuba. Is anybody thinking about that or talking about that?
It's all under the surface. It's possible. It's wanted. Even just the tourism directed at the Cuban Native communities in the Eastern Mountains. It's a sizable community of Native people in Cuba, Taino derived folks who our own family and many others have also thought about a more genuine indigenous tourism to visit the actual communities and take part in activities of community life, not so much scantily dressed females up on stage trying to do some kind of a pseudo-Indian thing. So those possibilities have been there, and the Native nations in the North have had, there's been a number of good visits to Cuba by different delegations. I remember hosting one myself from the Smithsonian, and also the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, Akwesasne Mohawk tribe, leaders in Cuba, looking specifically at some of the medicines that had been developed in Cuba that combated issues of amputations due to sugar diseases, and which is very prevalent in the native world up here. And there's a very, very fine medicine that Cuban science had developed, but it couldn't happen because of all the embargo and blockade that was going on even then. This is back in 2015 when we made that trip. But many other folks have gone to Cuba from North American nations.
Jose, tell me how the Taino community there in Cuba is dealing with the energy crisis and the blackouts. And as I understand it, the blackouts have been occurring for a long time, even before the embargo. So give me a little more background on how these communities are holding up.
First of all, the blackouts have been going on and off, not as severe as right now. because partly of the economy and partly the lack of good planning around keeping up the systems, the electric systems. The Taino community, which it calls itself and goes by Gran Familia Taina, Gran Familia being an applied name because a self-applied name because in Cuba the question of a tribe or a native nation having any standing under the law is not established. But the Gran Familia has established itself by its diplomacy and its populations, about 30,000 people or so, perhaps the registry will reach more like 40,000 up in the eastern mountains. Mostly a lot of agriculture in the families, some professional work and other kinds of work, but largely agricultural. So they have the advantage of having food production in the home. You know, what John Mohawk, our Seneca intellectual up here in the Haudenosaunee, used to call the domestic mode of production, the way of self-sufficiency. And because of that thinking, because of the indigenous thinking, they're doing somewhat better than most because, first of all, they're very well woven together as a people, kinship strong, and they have medicines, a lot of natural medicine knowledge, and they also have a lot of food production. Even their own families, which are in the urban areas, benefit from that and have more access to food. So that part is better. Everything else is horrible. You know, there's no refrigeration whatsoever. So what kind of planning can you do? You don't know electric when it's going to be in or out. So very, very difficult time. And in the urban areas for the 11 million people in the country, very, very, very tough moment. Now, Cubans are resilient. They like to laugh at everything. I think the whole country is very indigenous that way. They love their humor, and that's the way people survive. And people do for each other. They know how to, you know, if I have the medicine your child needs, I'm going to give it to you today, you know. Tomorrow you help me. So it's a lot of that, again, indigenous reciprocity in community. Widely in Cuba and more so in the indigenous communities because they're more tightly knit than most people. But tough times, unnecessary. Why the U.S. wants to become so hated in the world? Why these policies that just make everybody really dislike the United States of America, hate it? You know, it's creating so much trouble.
I want to ask you because the president gave a press interview several weeks ago and talked about how, in his view, Cuban Americans are excited about these actions that he's undertaken. Mm-hmm. And but the Cuban people who you talk to, other Cuban people, do they share that sentiment?
A very strong core of Cuban Americans, particularly centered in Miami and Florida, are very so strongly anti the Cuban government and the large swaths of population that circulate around the government, that there's just a lot of hostility. So the thought that an American president threatens to anything from military action to establish this blockade and is speaking so brazenly has some people very excited. There's a lot of debate. So, what comes next? Is it a bloodbath? Do the Cubans of 2026 need a bloodbath at this point in history? That will never end. That will never end. And right now, it's a peaceful, if dire, situation. A few demonstrations here and there and so forth. So, no, there's plenty of people who like the idea of what President Trump is signifying. But what comes next, how, when, that's a big question, and it's dangerous because right now there's a Russian ship or maybe ships going to Cuba with with oil and so forth, petroleum, and it's just harks back to 1962 and the Cuban Missile Crisis. What happens with a confrontation at sea between two superpowers? Who needs that at this point in history? So that's true. There's a lot of opinion back and forth.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up the show, but I want to thank all our guests who joined us today: Jose Barrero, Megan Kalk, Raymond Matt, and also Jamila Southwind. And don't forget, you can tune in again tomorrow. We'll take a look back at this year's Arctic Winter Games and the Alaska Iditarod with Native athletes. So hope you'll be able to tune in. Until then, I'm Sean Spruce. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Tribal colleges and universities support their students in countless ways. They say I believe and offer help before it's asked.
Hear that? That's everything tribal college faculty do for their students on Fast Forward. Because if one tried to say it in real time, they'd be here all day. They teach, guide, comfort, and connect. And for that, the community is grateful. Learn more at mostthoroughdjobdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
They give extensions, cheer progress, share laughter, create calm, and allow reflection. They inspire hope, share wisdom, guide gently, validate feelings.
Attention tribal community leaders. The 2026 Tribal Self-Governance Conference takes place this April 7th to the 9th at the Gila River Wild Horse Pass Resort and Casino in Chandler, Arizona. Tribal delegation meetings using AI, Indian Health 101, land stewardship, tribal values-based communications training, understanding the tribal-federal relationship, and more, all at one convening. The full draft agenda and registration are available at tribalselfgov.org, who support this show.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
The 30th Annual Alaska Native Art Auction, celebrating Indigenous artists and voices, takes place Saturday, March 21st. Corporate sponsorship opportunities are available. Information at kmba.org.